The African sun hung mercilessly overhead as dust swirled in lazy spirals across the empty dirt road. In this forgotten corner of the savannah, where acacia trees cast skeletal shadows and the air shimmered with heat, an ancient drama was unfolding. A massive African rock python, its body thick as a telephone pole and patterned with earthy browns and olive greens, had wrapped itself around a zebra in a deadly embrace that seemed impossible to escape. The zebra's eyes rolled white with terror as the snake's muscular coils tightened with each labored breath she took. Her powerful legs, once capable of outrunning lions, now kicked helplessly at the air, stirring up clouds of red dust that settled like powder on her black and white stripes. The python's small dark eyes remained fixed and emotionless, a living machine designed for one purpose: to squeeze the life from its prey with methodical patience. But this wasn't just any zebra fighting for her life on that desolate road. This was a mother whose heart burned with a love so fierce it had already driven her to defy every instinct of self-preservation. Her story had begun hours earlier in the golden light of dawn, when the world still held promise and safety seemed possible. That morning, the zebra herd had moved peacefully across the grasslands like a flowing river of stripes. Among them, she had kept her newborn foal close, a gangly creature whose legs still trembled with the uncertainty of new life. The baby stayed pressed against her side, learning the rhythm of survival from her mother's steady heartbeat. In those precious moments before chaos struck, the world was perfect. Then came the lions. They erupted from the tall grass like a thunderstorm of claws and fangs, their roars splitting the morning air and sending the entire herd into blind panic. Hooves thundered against the earth as zebras scattered in every direction, a desperate stampede where only the fastest would survive. In the confusion and terror, mother and child were torn apart. One moment they were together, the next the baby had vanished into the swirling chaos of dust and fear. When the danger passed and the herd regrouped miles away, the mother zebra found herself staring at empty space where her foal should have been. The other zebras urged her forward with nervous whinnies, their instincts screaming that they needed to keep moving, keep running, stay with the safety of numbers. But as the herd began to move away, she made a choice that would have seemed impossible to any rational creature. She turned around. While every fiber of her being begged her to follow the safety of the herd, something deeper and more powerful held her back. The invisible thread that connected her to her child pulled stronger than fear, stronger than logic, stronger than the basic drive to survive. She would not abandon her baby, not while there was breath in her body and strength in her legs. So began her solitary journey back through territory thick with predators, retracing the path through grasslands where lions might still be hunting and hyenas waited for stragglers like her. She moved with her nose to the ground, searching for the faintest trace of her foal's scent, calling out with desperate barks that echoed unanswered across the endless plains. For hours she searched, her body trembling with exhaustion and her heart hammering with fear. Every shadow could hide a predator, every sound might herald her death, but she pressed on. Love had made her fearless, and that fearlessness would soon make her careless. She never noticed the python waiting in the thicket beside the dirt road. The massive snake had been lying motionless for 3 days, a patient predator whose hunger had sharpened to a razor's edge. It didn't need to see her coming. It felt the vibrations of her hooves through the earth and tasted her scent on the air with flicks of its forked tongue. When she paused on the road to lift her head and scan for any sign of her baby, she became perfectly still for just one fatal moment. The python struck like lightning. 20 feet of pure muscle launched from the bushes and slammed into her side, knocking her to the ground with crushing force. Before she could even scream, the snake's body was wrapping around her, coil after coil, each one tighter than the last. Her shriek of terror pierced the air, but there was no one to hear it except the vultures circling overhead. Miles away, 2 park rangers named David and Benjamin were conducting their daily patrol when that scream cut through the static of their radio. They had heard countless animal calls over the years, but this was different. This was the sound of imminent death, raw and desperate and utterly unmistakable. Without hesitation, both men gunned their engines and raced across the rough terrain toward the sound. Their vehicles bounced violently over rocks and gullies, but they didn't slow down. Every second counted, and they both knew that whatever was making that sound wouldn't last long. When they crested the hill and saw the scene below, both rangers felt their hearts sink. The python was enormous, easily one of the largest they had ever encountered, and the zebra's struggles were already growing weak. They grabbed their intervention tools, long wooden poles designed for safely managing dangerous wildlife, and approached with the careful precision of men who knew one wrong move could make everything worse. David, the more experienced ranger, moved to the python's tail section, while Benjamin took position near the head. Their plan was to distract the snake and gradually work the coils loose. But the ancient predator was locked in its primal purpose. It ignored their prodding and leverage, its entire being focused on the methodical compression of its prey. The zebra's breathing became more labored with each passing second. Her eyes, once bright with the fire of maternal determination, were growing glassy. The rangers were losing the battle, and they all knew it. In desperation, Benjamin sprinted back to his vehicle and grabbed a bottle of hand sanitizer from his emergency kit. It was an unconventional tool, but the high alcohol content could overwhelm a snake's sensitive nasal passages and break its concentration. He squirted the gel directly in front of the python's face, and the reaction was immediate. The snake hissed and jerked its head away from the irritating smell. Its focus broken, the powerful coils began to loosen just enough. Confused and annoyed, the python slowly unwound itself and slithered away into the grass, disappearing like a bad dream. The mother zebra lay gasping on the dusty road, her entire body shaking from trauma and exhaustion. The rangers examined her carefully, their hands gentle as they checked for broken ribs or internal injuries. Miraculously, despite the crushing pressure she had endured, nothing was broken. They treated her wounds with antiseptic and gave her anti-inflammatory medication before stepping back to give her space to recover. Before leaving, they fitted her with a lightweight GPS collar, not just for research, but because they had to know if their desperate intervention would lead to the ending they all hoped for. Slowly, painfully, the mother zebra struggled to her feet. She stood swaying for a long moment, as if testing whether her legs would hold her. Then, with steps that grew steadier with each passing moment, she began walking in the same direction she had been traveling before the attack. Her search would continue. For 2 days, the rangers tracked her movement via satellite, watching the small blip on their screens as it traced a determined path across the savanna.
On the third day, they launched a drone to get a visual confirmation of what their data was telling them. The drone's camera found her standing beside a watering hole, and she wasn't alone. Pressed against her side, nuzzling her neck with obvious relief and joy, was a small zebra foal. The reunion had happened. Despite lions, despite a giant python, despite every force of nature that had tried to tear them apart, love had won. The drone footage showed them standing quietly together in the golden afternoon light, a small island of peace in the vast wilderness. The mother's courage, combined with the ranger's quick thinking and compassion, had restored a bond that seemed impossible to save. In the end,